Arrangement of sections: the Indian Contract Act, 1872. The Indian Partnership Act, 1932. The Sale of Goods Act, 1930. The Negotiable Instruments Act, 1881. The Indian Contract Act, 1872. Preliminary. 1. Short title. Extent. Commencement. Saving. 2. Interpretation Clause. Chapter 1. Of the Communication, Acceptance and Revocation of Proposals. 3. Communication, Acceptance and Revocation of Proposals. 4. Communication when complete. 5. Revocation of proposals and acceptances. 6. Revocation how made. 7. Acceptance must be absolute. 8. Acceptance by performing conditions or receiving consideration. 9. Promises, express and implied. Chapter 2. Of Contracts, Voidable Contracts and Void Agreements. 10. What agreements are contracts? 11. Who are competent to contract? 12. What is a sound mind for the purposes of contracting? 13. Consent defined. 14. Free consent defined. 15. Coercion defined. 16. Undue influence defined. 17. Fraud defined. 18. Misrepresentation defined. 19. Voidability of agreements without free consent. 19a. Power to set aside contract induced by undue influence. 20. Agreement void where both parties are under mistake as to matter of fact. 21. Effect of mistakes as to law. 22. Contract caused by mistake of one party as to matter of fact. 23. What considerations and objects are lawful, and what not. Void agreements. 24. Agreement void, if considerations and objects unlawful in part. 25. Agreement without consideration void, unless it is in writing and registered, or is a promise to compensate for something done, or is a promise to pay a debt barred by limitation law. 26. Agreement in restraint of marriage void. 27. Agreement in restraint of trade void. Saving of agreement not to carry on business of which goodwill is sold. 28. Agreements in restraint of legal proceeding void. Saving of contract to refer to arbitration dispute that may arise. Saving of contract to refer questions that have already arisen. Saving of a guarantee agreement of a bank or a financial institution. 29. Agreements void for uncertainty. 30. Agreements by way of wager void. Exception in favor of certain prizes for horse racing. Section 294A of the Indian Penal Code not affected. Chapter 3. Of Contingent Contracts. 31. Contingent contract defined. 32. Enforcement of contracts contingent on an event happening. 33. Enforcement of contracts contingent on an event not happening. 34. When event on which contract is contingent to be deemed impossible, if it is the future conduct of a living person. 35. When contracts become void which are contingent on happening of specified event within fixed time. When contracts may be enforced which are contingent on specified event not happening within fixed time. 36. Agreement contingent on impossible events void. Chapter 4. Of the Performance of Contracts. Contracts which must be performed. 37. Obligation of parties to contracts. 38. Effect of refusal to accept offer of performance. 39. Effect of refusal of party to perform promise wholly. By whom contracts must be performed. 40. Person by whom promise is to be performed. 41. Effect of accepting performance from third person. 42. Devolution of joint liabilities. 43. Any one of joint promisors may be compelled to perform. Each promisor may compel contribution. Sharing of loss by default in contribution. 44. Effective release of one joint promisor. 45. Devolution of joint rights. Time and place for performance. 46. Time for performance of promise when no application is to be made and no time is specified. 47. Time and place for performance of promise where time is specified and no application to be made. 48. Application for performance on certain day to be at proper time and place. 49. Place for performance of promise where no application to be made and no place fixed for performance. 50. Performance in manner or at time prescribed or sanctioned by promisee. Performance of reciprocal promises. 51. Promisor not bound to perform, unless reciprocal promisee ready and willing to perform. 52. Order of performance of reciprocal promises. 53. Liability of party preventing event on which the contract is to take effect. 54. Effect of default is to that promise which should be first performed, in contract consisting of reciprocal promises. 55. Effect of failure to perform at fixed time, in contract in which time is essential. Effect of such failure when time is not essential. Effect of acceptance of performance at time other than that agreed upon. 56. Agreement to do impossible act. Contract to do an act afterwards becoming impossible or unlawful. Compensation for loss through non-performance of act known to be impossible or unlawful. 57. Reciprocal promise to do things legal, and also other things illegal. 58. Alternative promise, one branch being illegal. Appropriation of payments. 59. Application of payment where debt to be discharged is indicated. 60. Application of payment where debt to be discharged is not indicated. 61. Application of payment where neither party appropriates. Contracts which need not be performed. 62. Effect of novation, rescission, and alteration of contract. 63. Promisee may dispense with or remit performance of promise. 64. Consequences of rescission, avoidable contract. 65. Obligation of person who has received advantage under void agreement or contract that becomes void. 66. Mode of communicating or revoking rescission, avoidable contract. 67. Effect of neglect of promisee to afford promisor reasonable facilities for performance. Chapter 5. Of certain relations resembling those created by contract. 68. Claim for necessaries supplied to person incapable of contracting, or on his account. 69. Reimbursement of person paying money due by another, in payment of which he is interested. 70. Obligation of person enjoying benefit of non-gratuitous act. 71. Responsibility of finder of goods. 72. Liability of person to whom money is paid, or thing delivered, by mistake or under coercion. Chapter 6. Of the consequences of breach of contract. 73. Compensation for loss or damage caused by breach of contract. Compensation for failure to discharge obligation resembling those created by contract. 74. Compensation for breach of contract where penalty stipulated for. 75. Party rightfully rescinding contract, entitled to compensation. Chapter 7. Sale of goods. Repealed. 76 to 123. Repealed. Chapter 8. Of indemnity and guarantee. 124. Contract of indemnity, defined. 125. Rights of indemnity holder when sued. 126. Contract of guarantee, surety, principal debtor, and creditor. 127. Consideration for guarantee. 128. Surety s liability. 129. Continuing guarantee. 130. Revocation of continuing guarantee. 131. Revocation of continuing guarantee by surety s death. 132. Liability of two persons primarily liable, not affected by arrangement between them that one shall be surety on other s default. 133. Discharge of surety by variance in terms of contract. 134. Discharge of surety by release or discharge of principal debtor. 135. Discharge of surety when creditor compounds with, gives time to, or agrees not to sue, principal debtor. 136. Surety not discharged when agreement made with third person to give time to principal debtor. 137. Creditor s forbearance to sue does not discharge surety. 138. Release of one co-surety does not discharge others. 139. Discharge of surety of creditor s act or omission impairing surety s eventual remedy. 140. Rights of surety on payment or performance. 141. Surety s right to benefit of creditor s securities. 142. Guarantee obtained by misrepresentation invalid. 143. Guarantee obtained by concealment invalid. 144. Guarantee on contract that creditor shall not act on it until co-surety joins. 145. Implied promise to indemnify surety. 146. Co-sureties liable to contribute equally. 147. Liability of co-sureties bound in different sums. Chapter 9. Of bailment. 148. Bailment, bailor, and bailee, defined. 149. Delivery to bailee how made. 150. Bailor s duty to disclose faults in goods bailed. 151. Care to be taken by bailee. 152. Bailee when not liable for loss, etc., of thing bailed. 153. Termination of bailment by bailee s act inconsistent with conditions. 154. Liability of bailee making unauthorized use of goods bailed. 155. Effect of mixture, with bailor s consent, of his goods with bailee s. 156. Effect of mixture, without bailor s consent, when the goods can be separated. 157. Effect of mixture, without bailor s consent, when the goods cannot be separated. 158. Repayment, by bailor, of necessary expenses. 159. Restoration of goods lent gratuitously. 160. Return of goods bailed on expiration of time or accomplishment of purpose. 161. Bailee's responsibility when goods are not duly returned. 162. Termination of gratuitous bailment by death. 163. Bailer entitled to increase or profit from goods bailed. 164. Bailer's responsibility to bailee. 165. Bailment by several joint owners. 166. Bailee not responsible on re-delivery to bailer without title. 167. Right of third person claiming goods bailed. 168. Right of finder of goods. May sue for specific reward offered. 169. When finder of thing commonly on sale may sell it. 170. Bailee's particular lien. 171. General lien of bankers, factors, wharfingers, attorneys and policy brokers. Bailments of pledges. 172. Pledge, pawner, and pawnee, defined. 173. Pawnee's right of retainer. 174. Pawnee not to retain for debt or promise other than that for which goods pledge. Presumption in case of subsequent advances. 175. Pawnee's right is to extraordinary expenses incurred. 176. Pawnee's right where pawner makes default. 177. Defaulting pawner's right to redeem. 178. Pledge by mercantile agent. 178a. Pledge by person in possession under voidable contract. 179. Pledge where pawner has only a limited interest. Suits by bailies or bailers against wrongdoers. 180. Suit by bailer or bailee against wrongdoer. 181. Apportionment of relief or compensation obtained by such suits. Chapter 10. Agency. Appointment and authority of agents. 182. Agent and principal, defined. 183. Who may employ agent. 184. Who may be an agent. 185. Consideration not necessary. 186. Agent's authority may be expressed or implied. 187. Definitions of express and implied authority. 188. Extent of agent's authority. 189. Agent's authority in an emergency. Subagents. 190. When agent cannot delegate. 191. Subagent, defined. 192. Representation of principal by subagent properly appointed. Agent's responsibility for subagent. Subagent's responsibility. 193. Agent's responsibility for subagent appointed without authority. 194. Relation between principal and person duly appointed by agent to act in business of agency. 195. Agent's duty in naming such person. Ratification. 196. Right of person as to acts done for him without his authority. Effect of ratification. 197. Ratification may be expressed or implied. 198. Knowledge requisite for valid ratification. 199. Effect of ratifying unauthorized act forming part of a transaction. 200. Ratification of unauthorized act cannot injure third person. 201. Termination of agency. 202. Termination of agency, where agent has an interest in subject matter. 203. When principal may revoke agent's authority. 204. Revocation where authority has been partly exercised. 205. Compensation for revocation by principal, or renunciation by agent. 206. Notice of revocation or renunciation. 207. Revocation and renunciation may be expressed or implied. 208. When termination of agent's authority takes effect as to agent, and as to third persons. 209. Agent's duty on termination of agency by principal's death or insanity. 210. Termination of subagent's authority. Agent's duty to principal. 211. Agent's duty in conducting principal's business. 212. Skill and diligence required from agent. 213. Agent's accounts. 214. Agent's duty to communicate with principal. 215. Right of principal when agent deals on his own account in business of agency without principal's consent. 216. Principal's right to benefit gained by agent dealing on his own account in business of agency. 217. Agent's right of retainer out of sums received on principal's account. 218. Agent's duty to pay sums received for principal. 219. When agent's remuneration becomes due. 220. Agent not entitled to remuneration for business misconducted. 221. Agent's lien on principal's property. Principal's duty to agent. 222. Agent to be indemnified against consequences of lawful acts. 223. Agent to be indemnified against consequences of acts done in good faith. 224. Non-liability of employer of agent to do a criminal act. 225. Compensation to agent for injury caused by principal's neglect. Effect of agency on contracts with third persons. 226. Enforcement and consequences of agent's contracts. 227. Principal how far bound when agent exceeds authority. 228. Principal not bound when excess of agent's authority is not separable. 229. Consequences of notice given to agent. 230. Agent cannot personally enforce, nor be bound by, contracts on behalf of principal. Presumption of contract to contrary. 231. Rights of parties to a contract made by agent not disclosed. 232. Performance of contract with agent supposed to be principal. 233. Right of person dealing with agent personally liable. 234. Consequence of inducing agent or principal to act on belief that principal or agent will be held exclusively liable. 235. Liability of pretended agent. 236. Person falsely contracting as agent not entitled to performance. 237. Liability of principal inducing belief that agent's unauthorized acts were authorized. 238. Effect, on agreement, of misrepresentation or fraud by agent. Chapter 11. Of partnership. 239 to 266 repealed. Schedule, repealed. The Indian Partnership Act, 1932. Chapter 1. Preliminary. Sections. 1. Short title, extent and commencement. 2. Definitions. 3. Application of provisions of Act 9 of 1872. Chapter 2. The nature of partnership. 4. Definition of partnership, partner, firm, and firm name. 5. Partnership not created by status. 6. Mode of determining existence of partnership. 7. Partnership at will. 8. Particular partnership. Chapter 3. Relations of partners to one another. 9. General duties of partners. 10. Duty to indemnify for loss caused by fraud. 11. Determination of rights and duties of partners by contract between the partners. Agreements in restraint of trade. 12. The conduct of the business. 13. Mutual rights and liabilities. 14. The property of the firm. 15. Application of the property of the firm. 16. Personal profits earned by partners. 17. Rights and duties of partners, after a change in the firm, after the expiry of the term of the firm, and where additional undertakings are carried out. Chapter 4. Relations of partners to third parties. 18. Partner to be agent of the firm. 19. Implied authority of partner as agent of the firm. 20. Extension and restriction of partners' implied authority. 21. Partner's authority in an emergency. 22. Mode of doing act to bind firm. 23. Effect of admissions by a partner. 24. Effect of notice to acting partner. 25. Liability of a partner for acts of the firm. 26. Liability of the firm for wrongful acts of a partner. 27. Liability of firm for misapplication by partners. 28. Holding out. 29. Rights of transferee of a partner's interest. 30. Minors admitted to the benefits of partnership. Chapter 5. Incoming and outgoing partners. 31. Introduction of a partner. 32. Retirement of a partner. 33. Expulsion of a partner. 34. Insolvency of a partner. 35. Liability of estate of deceased partner. 36. Rights of outgoing partner to carry on competing business. Agreements in restraint of trade. 37. Right of outgoing partner in certain cases to share subsequent profits. 38. Revocation of continuing guarantee by change in firm. Chapter 6. Dissolution of a firm. 39. Dissolution of a firm. 40. Dissolution by agreement. 41. Compulsory dissolution. 42. Dissolution on the happening of certain contingencies. 43. Dissolution by notice of partnership at will. 44. Dissolution by the court. 45. Liability for acts of partners done after dissolution. 46. Right of partners to have business wound up after dissolution. 47. Continuing authority of partners for purposes of winding up. 48. Mode of settlement of accounts between partners. 49. Payment of firm debts and of separate debts. 50. Personal profits earned after dissolution. 51. Return of premium on premature dissolution. 52. Rights where partnership contract is rescinded for fraud or misrepresentation. 53. Right to restrain from use of firm name or firm property. 54. Agreements in restraint of trade. 55. Sale of goodwill after dissolution. Rights of buyer and seller of goodwill. Agreements in restraint of trade. Chapter 7. Registration of firms. 56. Power to exempt from application of this chapter. 57. Appointment of registrars. 58. Application for registration. 59. Registration. 60. Recording of alterations in firm name and principal place of business. 61. Noting of closing and opening of branches. 62. Noting of changes in names and addresses of partners. 63. Recording of changes in and dissolution of a firm. Recording of withdrawal of a minor. 64. Rectification of mistakes. 65. Amendment of register by order of court. 66. Inspection of register and filed documents. 67. Grant of copies. 68. Rules of evidence. 69. Effect of non-registration. 70. Penalty for furnishing false particulars. 71. Power to make rules. Chapter 8. Supplemental. 72. Mode of giving public notice. 73. Repealed. 74. Savings. Schedule 1. Maximum fees. Schedule 2. Repealed. The Sale of Goods Act, 1930. Chapter 1. Preliminary. Sections. 1. Short title, extent and commencement. 2. Definitions. 3. Application of provisions of Act 9 of 1872. Chapter 2. Formation of the contract. Contract of sale. 4. Sale and agreement to sell. Formalities of the contract. 5. Contract of sale. How made. Subject matter of contract. 6. Existing or future goods. 7. Goods perishing before making of contract. 8. Goods perishing before sale but after agreement to sell. The price. 9. Ascertainment of price. 10. Agreement to sell at valuation. Conditions and warranties. 11. Stipulations as to time. 12. Condition and warranty. 13. When condition to be treated as warranty. 14. Implied undertaking as to title, etc. 15. Sale by description. 16. Implied conditions as to quality or fitness. 17. Sale by sample. Chapter 3. Effects of the contract. Transfer of property is between seller and buyer. 18. Goods must be ascertained. 19. Property passes when intended to pass. 20. Specific goods in a deliverable state. 21. Specific goods to be put into a deliverable state. 22. Specific goods in a deliverable state, when the seller has to do anything thereto in order to ascertain price. 23. Sale of unascertained goods and appropriation. Delivery to carrier. 24. Goods sent on approval or on sale or return. 25. Reservation of right of disposal. 26. Risk prima facie passes with property. Transfer of title. 27. Sale by person not the owner. 28. Sale by one of joint owners. 29. Sale by person in possession under voidable contract. 30. Seller or buyer in possession after sale. Chapter 4. Performance of the contract. 31. Duties of seller and buyer. 32. Payment and delivery or concurrent conditions. 33. Delivery. 34. Effect of part delivery. 35. Buyer to apply for delivery. 36. Rules as to delivery. 37. Delivery of wrong quantity. 38. Installment deliveries. 39. Delivery to carrier or wharfinger. 40. Risk where goods are delivered at distant place. 41. Buyer's right of examining the goods. 42. Acceptance. 43. Buyer not bound to return rejected goods. 44. Liability of buyer for neglecting or refusing delivery of goods. Chapter 5. Rights of unpaid seller against the goods. 45. Unpaid seller, defined. 46. Unpaid seller's rights. Unpaid seller's lien. 47. Seller's lien. 48. Part delivery. 49. Termination of lien. Stoppage in transit. 50. Right of stoppage in transit. 51. Duration of transit. 52. How stoppage in transit is effected. Transfer by buyer and seller. 53. Effect of subsale or pledge by buyer. 54. Sale not generally rescinded by lien or stoppage in transit. Chapter 6. Suits for breach of the contract. 55. Suit for price. 56. Damages for non-acceptance. 57. Damages for non-delivery. 58. Specific performance. 59. Remedy for breach of warranty. 60. Repudiation of contract before due date. 61. Interest by way of damages and special damages. Chapter 7. Miscellaneous. 62. Exclusion of implied terms and conditions. 63. Reasonable time. A question of fact. 64. Auction sale. 64a. In contracts of sale, amount of increased or decreased taxes to be added or deducted. 65. Repealed. 66. Savings. The Negotiable Instruments Act, 1881. Chapter 1. Preliminary. Sections. 1. Short title. Local extent. Saving of usages relating to hundis, etc. Commencement. 2. Repealed. 3. Interpretation clause. Banker. Chapter 2. Of notes, bills, and checks. 4. Promissory note. 5. Bill of exchange. 6. Check. 7. Drawer. Drawee. Drawee in case of need. Acceptor. Acceptor for honor. Payee. 8. Holder. 9. Holder in due course. 10. Payment in due course. 11. Inland instrument. 12. Foreign instrument. 13. Negotiable instrument. 14. Negotiation. 15. Endorsement. 16. Endorsement in blank and in full. Endorsee. 17. Ambiguous instruments. 18. Where amount is stated differently in figures and words. 19. Instruments payable on demand. 20. Inchoate stamped instruments. 21. At sight. On presentment. After sight. 22. Maturity. Days of grace. 23. Calculating maturity of bill or note payable so many months after date or sight. 24. Calculating maturity of bill or note payable so many days after date or sight. 25. When day of maturity is a holiday. Chapter 3. Parties to notes, bill and checks. 26. Capacity to make, etc., promissory notes, etc. Minor. 27. Agency. 28. Liability of agent signing. 29. Liability of legal representative signing. 30. Liability of drawer. 31. Liability of drawee of check. 32. Liability of maker of note and acceptor of bill. 33. Only drawee can be acceptor except in need or for honor. 34. Acceptance by several drawees not partners. 35. Liability of endorser. 36. Liability of prior parties to holder in due course. 37. Maker, drawer and acceptor principals. 38. Prior party a principal in respect of each subsequent party. 39. Certityship. 40. Discharge of endorser's liability. 41. Acceptor bound, although endorsement forged. 42. Acceptance of bill drawn in fictitious name. 43. Negotiable instrument made, etc., without consideration. 44. Partial absence or failure of money consideration. 45. Partial failure of consideration not consisting of money. 45a. Holder's right to duplicate of lost bill. Chapter 4. Of negotiation. 46. Delivery. 47. Negotiation by delivery. 48. Negotiation by endorsement. 49. Conversion of endorsement in blank into endorsement in full. 50. Effect of endorsement. 51. Who may negotiate. 52. Endorser who excludes his own liability or makes it conditional. 53. Holder deriving title from holder in due course. 54. Instrument endorsed in blank. 55. Conversion of endorsement in blank into endorsement in full. 56. Endorsement for part of sum due. 57. Legal representative cannot by delivery only negotiate instrument endorsed by deceased. 58. Instrument obtained by unlawful means or for unlawful consideration. 59. Instrument acquired after dishonor or when overdue. Accommodation note or bill. 60. Instrument negotiable till payment or satisfaction. Chapter 5. Of presentment. 61. Presentment for acceptance. 62. Presentment of promissory note for sight. 63. Drawee's time for deliberation. 64. Presentment for payment. 65. Hours for presentment. 66. Presentment for payment of instrument payable after date or sight. 67. Presentment for payment of promissory note payable by installments. 68. Presentment for payment of instrument payable at specified place and not elsewhere. 69. Instrument payable at specified place. 70. Presentment where no exclusive place specified. 71. Presentment when maker, etc., has no known place of business or residence. 72. Presentment of check to charge drawer. 73. Presentment of check to charge any other person. 74. Presentment of instrument payable on demand. 75. Presentment by or to agent, representative of deceased, or assignee of insolvent. 75a. Excuse for delay in presentment for acceptance or payment. 76. When presentment unnecessary. 77. Liability of banker for negligently dealing with bill presented for payment. Chapter 6. Of payment and interest. 78. To whom payment should be made. 79. Interest when rate specified. 80. Interest when no rate specified. 81. Delivery of instrument on payment, or indemnity in case of loss. Chapter 7. Of discharge from liability on notes, bills and checks. 82. Discharge from liability, a. By cancellation, b. By release, c. By payment. 83. Discharge by allowing drawee more than 48 hours to accept. 84. When check not duly presented and drawer damaged thereby. 85. Check payable to order. 85a. Drafts drawn by one branch of a bank on another payable to order. 86. Parties not consenting discharged by qualified or limited acceptance. 87. Effect of material alteration. Alteration by endorsee. 88. Acceptor or endorser bound notwithstanding previous alteration. 89. Payment of instrument on which alteration is not apparent. 90. Extinguishment of rights of action on bill in acceptor's hands. 91. Dishonor by non-acceptance. 92. Dishonor by non-payment. 93. By and to whom notice should be given. 94. Mode in which notice may be given. 95. Party receiving must transmit notice of dishonor. 96. Agent for presentment. 97. When party to whom notice given is dead. 98. When notice of dishonor is unnecessary. Chapter 9. Of noting and protest. 99. Noting. 100. Protest. Protest for better security. 101. Contents of protest. 102. Notice of protest. 103. Protest for non-payment after dishonor by non-acceptance. 104. Protest of foreign bills. 104a. When noting equivalent to protest. Chapter 10. Of reasonable time. 105. Reasonable time. 106. Reasonable time of giving notice of dishonor. 107. Reasonable time for transmitting such notice. Chapter 11. Of acceptance and payment for honor and reference in case of need. 108. Acceptance for honor. 109. How acceptance for honor must be made. 110. Acceptance not specifying for whose honor it is made. 111. Liability of acceptor for honor. 112. When acceptor for honor may be charged. 113. Payment for honor. 114. Right of payer for honor. 115. Drawee in case of need. 116. Acceptance and payment without protest. Chapter 12. Of compensation. 117. Rules as to compensation. Chapter 13. Special rule of evidence. 118. Presumptions as to negotiable instruments, a. Of consideration, b. As to date, c. As to time of acceptance, d. As to time of transfer, e. As to order of endorsements, f. As to stamp, g. That holder is a holder in due course. 119. Presumption on proof of protest. 120. Estoppel against denying original validity of instrument. 121. Estoppel against denying capacity of payee to endorse. 122. Estoppel against denying signature or capacity of prior party. Chapter 14. Of crossed checks. 123. Check crossed generally. 124. Check crossed specially. 125. Crossing after issue. 126. Payment of check crossed generally. Payment of check crossed specially. 127. Payment of check crossed specially more than once. 128. Payment in due course of crossed check. 129. Payment of crossed check out of due course. 130. Check bearing, not negotiable. 131. Non-liability of banker receiving payment of check. 131a. Application of chapter to drafts. Chapter 15. Of bills in sets. 132. Set of bills. 133. Holder of first acquired part entitled to. Chapter 16. Of international law. 134. Law governing liability of maker, acceptor or endorser of foreign instrument. 135. Law of place of payment governs dishonor. 136. Instrument made, etc., out of India, but in accordance with the law of India. 137. Presumption as to foreign law. Chapter 17. Of penalties in case of dishonor of certain checks for insufficiency of funds in the accounts. 138. Dishonor of check for insufficiency, etc., of funds in the account. 139. Presumption in favor of holder. 140. Defense which may not be allowed in any prosecution under Section 138. 141. Offenses by companies. 142. Cognizance of offenses. 142a. Validation for transfer of pending cases. 143. Power of court to try cases summarily. 143a. Power to direct interim compensation. 144. Mode of service of summons. 145. Evidence on affidavit. 146. Banks slip prima facie evidence of certain facts. 147. Offenses to be compoundable. 148. Power of appellate court to order payment pending appeal against conviction. Schedule, enactments repealed.